Three, and two, and one, and we are live. It's like the Joker. Here we go. Okay, all right. We're on now. What's up, YouTube? What's up, everybody? Welcome. Let me go back on the Zoom stream. We got it. Okay, cool. Welcome, everybody, to another week. Another week. It sounds funny. Another strong day. Welcome to another strong day. Another day here on The New Breed. I'm your host, Fernando Caro. If this is your first time jumping onto my live streams, welcome. This is IMC TV. This is The New Breed, okay? And it's a show on IMC TV where we philosophize, we talk the gospel talk, we talk that preacher talk, we walk and walk, we talk the talk. And that's just what it is here, man. So, I'm just grateful to just share and be a messenger of my life, a messenger of what I deem to be true. Now, I'm not taking credit for the truth because that'd be blasphemy to say I have the truth. However, there are those who have walked this path before me, my brothers who have come before me, and these are the gurus, these are the teachers, these are the messengers, the preachers who have come before us and have sent out ripples of influence out through the world. I'm talking the Jesus Christ, I'm talking the Buddha, I'm talking the Allahs, the Muhammads, I'm talking the Michael Singers, the Maharishis, I'm talking all these guys. I come in their lineage, and so I am privileged to sit here before you guys and talk to you guys here on YouTube. So if this is your first time, welcome. Okay. So this is the new breed. The new breed is I call it the new breed because it's a new generation, a new breed of being. Whether you're man, whether you're woman, whether you're a child, whether you're son, your daughter, your father, your mother, whether you're preacher, whether you're in the choir, whether whoever, whatever walk of life, whatever badge you carry, this is for all people. Okay. And at the end of the day, for us as the new breed, our mission, our job, our purpose in this life is to further evolve humanity, further evolve in our understandings of life. You see, I don't know what our purpose is for humanity. I don't know what the purpose is for your life, but I do know that at the end of our life, where we can say, I've had a great life, is a life that we evolved and overcame conditions that at some point seem to be like the end of the road. There's probably things in your life right now that you're facing that feel like the end of the road. Those moments where you're like, I don't have the answer. I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't know how I'm going to pay these bills, or you got into an accident. You don't know how you're going to survive, or these internal struggles that seem to burden everyday people of their everyday life, and losing that faith that the being once had. You see, when we were young, we've had a lot of faith. When we were young children, we had a ton of faith. We had a lot of faith in our mom. We had a lot of faith in our dad. We believed that these beings were like the greatest beings ever, right? We would look at them and we wouldn't know how they did it, right? And some of us grew up in conditions where, let's say, our parents weren't the most affluent. They didn't have all the money. They didn't have all the resources. However, yet time and time again, they continue to perform miracles. Maybe your parents didn't. Maybe your parents did. Point of the story is that they did the best that they absolutely could, even if they weren't there for you. I know people who have told me stories that their own parents abandoned them. Own parents gave them up for adoption. Their own parents hurt them and molested them. And so the child, the being, its pure innocence is then stripped and robbed away from him, because the people that they believed were there to protect them took away something that was so innocent in that being. And we got a question like, man, how could a human being hurt another little innocent creature, another innocent little being? Like, how is that possible? Now, I know it's getting very deep. I know that we're talking concepts and ideas that maybe the everyday human being doesn't experience, but these are real circumstances in life. Matter of fact, the more I communicate with the world, and the more we preach, and the more we talk, and the more that we share these ideas, the more we realize that there's actually a lot of people with these storylines covered and masked, embarrassed and shamed because they might be found out. But let me tell you this: anything that happened when you were a child, so take a look back, anything 18 and below. And when I say 18, it's really just because that's the consent age of here in the United States. But let's now go as a child. So 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, could go 15, right? At 15, we seem to be getting a good grasp of life. But at 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, our mind is still very malleable. From the ages of 1 to 4, it said that is the most malleable state our mind is, right? It's like, let's say you grew up in Asia, right? And from pregnancy, the first words that the little being inside the womb hears is a language, right? And so that being is now being introduced to that language. So by the age of 1 to 2 to 3, it senses sight, or I say sight and I hold my ear, hearing, sight, smell, taste, touch, right? It's adapting to its environment. It hears his parents talking. Maybe the parents were arguing and the baby was in the womb and it's being affected by it. Or when it grows up, it sees his parents very loving and caring, right? It all plays a factor in the child's development from 1 to 4. Let's say the child grew up in Mexico. It speaks Spanish, has different culture, different foods. In the United States, different culture, different foods, different language. And we can go so on and so forth. But the point is this: at 1 to 4, we are programmed for whatever culture we're brought up in, right? And so much of it, we don't have any choice. We didn't, right? I didn't have a choice. I didn't choose to be Mexican. I didn't choose to grow up in the household I grew up in. I didn't choose where I was going to be raised in California. I didn't choose, what schools I was going to go to. I didn't even choose my name. Did you choose your name? No? Okay. So a lot of these decisions were made for us, and we didn't have any choice. We just grew up in it. And then we grew up in a life where we started to see the problems of our life, right? Maybe your parents were together, but they always had arguments and they never really loved each other, right? And that happens a lot. So many parents, mom and dad, as we see time and time going forward, it's like they're together, they're married, especially if they're together for a long time, but they're not really together. It's like they just live together, but when's the last time you saw your parents actually show affection for one another? It's kind of like they just become housemates. They sleep together, but it's like, and that storyline seems to take place, or they broke up, they divorced, it was very toxic and very bad, or your parents left when you were younger. There's a ton of storylines. However, very few storylines go where, two parents had, an incredible marriage, and because that's just not a reality that we have been yet presented. We haven't seen yet, right? We haven't seen a healthy version of parents. And if we have, I haven't. I haven't. Not from my aunts and uncles, not from my friends' parents, not from my own parents, not from anyone I know. No one says, hey, my parents are having a beautiful relationship. They've been together for 80 years and they're still more loving. I know we hear these things, but where is it? Now, the point that I'm making in this is that so much of these barriers that we have inside of us, so much of these restrictions, so many of the fears that we have been deeply ingrained in our neurology, right? In our mental thought process. Now, let me ask you this. Anytime you face fear, or anytime fear comes up in your system, yes, I'm teaching right now. Okay. So anytime there's like this fear inside of you, I want you to pay very close attention. What is the voice in your head? Is there a voice in your head? There is. What is it saying? What is that voice in your head saying? Like, let's say, for example, I'm about to go to martial arts today. And for a while, I was living with this fear inside that this guy that I was sparring with would show up. He's very skilled. He has professional fights. He's very, very dangerous fighter. And I know when we fight, we're going to go at it. So inside of me in the beginning, there was a fear that I was like, oh man, I don't want to see this guy. I hope he doesn't show up. You know, I don't feel too good. And then there's this voice just going nuts in my head, right? Painting scenarios. And then I realized, man, how I faced my fear was by confronting it. So when he did show up and we're sparring, I would go right up to him and say, let's go, man, let's do it. And we would go. And as time went forward, you know, we've probably sparred about 5-6 times now. And I enjoy it. I look forward to it. It's exciting now. And I tell him, I'm like, man, thank you. Thank you. You know, I'm glad that that first time we sparred, you kicked my ass. But that was the greatest teaching I could have ever had. Because prior till then, I still had this ego, this understanding that, oh, I don't want to be beat up, or I don't want to, right? How bad is it going to be? Like, really, though? Or let's say you're in business and you're afraid to start because, you know, people are going to judge you and they're going to criticize you. Or, you know, there's something that you want to do, but you're afraid of what people might think about you, what your parents are going to think, what your girlfriend, your boyfriend is going to think. Like, look, that voice in the head, it starts with this. You got to have an awareness that there's a voice in your head that's telling you a story. It's telling you, it's literally seeping fear into you. You have a devil in your head who's putting fear inside your system, which is then causing you to have this reaction, this sabotaging effect where it cripples you, it stops you, it hinders you. And so what's the first step to removing fear is recognizing that it's there, recognizing that there's a voice in the head. And then what happens? It's not my job to figure out the fear. It's not my job to figure out what could go wrong, what could go right. It's not my job to do that. Look, what's going to happen is going to happen. What is going to be. If I get my ass kicked, then I get my ass kicked. If I fight better than I could have ever imagined, then hey, kumbaya. I'll be feeling, you know, flying colors after this. I'll be feeling real good. Okay. And so much of it is you have to allow yourself to go through whatever problem that you're resisting. You see that resistance that you keep putting up, they're like energetic barriers. And at some point they're going to break and that resistance is going to snap at you, right? It's like the person who drinks alcohol. They're like, no, I can't go out because, you know, I don't want to be around that stuff. And, or even if you put a little glass of alcohol around him, they're like, oh, dude, don't do that. You know, like they're so resistant to it. But what you resist will persist. I don't want to have so much effect by things. Let's say if you are alcoholic and you want to stop. How do you stop? Stop. You fucking stop. If someone's drinking and you hear the temptation in your mind say, oh, just have one. Like, it's going to be all good. Everybody's drinking. It's all good. You know, like you're going to have much more fun. And this little voice is starting to, it's like the devil with the serpent as a serpent, you know, trying to tell Eve to eat the apple. So you got the little devil in your head, bro. And it's still too strong and too mighty. And it's tempting you. It's tempting you into fear, into greed, into lack of trust. It's tempting you into hatred and anger and resentment. So the first step is recognizing that there's a voice in your head that's creating you this feeling. Let's say if you have anxiety, there's a voice in your head that's creating anxiety. There's a voice in your head that's creating any sort of condition. So what do? How do I get rid of this thing? I don't know if I can get rid of it. I mean, I think that's like the path to enlightenment. I think that a lot of these gurus and these messengers who have come before us, they've recognized that it was there. And the practice of their life was to eradicate that voice in their head and have no mind and full presence, full being. You see, when you're thinking, you're not living. When you're trying to analyze, you're not being. When you're trying to figure it out, you're not experiencing it. So the job is to then what? Remove the thinking, remove the analyzing, remove the trying to figure it out, remove all these forces of control that you're trying to put on your life, and allowing and having a greater faith that it's going to play out exactly the way it's supposed to. Whether you resist it or whether you don't resist it, it's not up to me to decide. It's up to me to figure out what's the best route. How am I gonna survive? Like, let's say, for example, I'm gonna go fight right now. Okay. And when I go show up to the martial arts, we got tattoo addicts in the house. When I go show up to the martial arts studio and I'm about to fight this guy, I'm gonna show up and fight this guy with full faith that I trust my practice. And that's what we have to have. We have to have a faith. And it's something I reminded myself a lot lately, is that I gotta have full faith in my technique, right? Like, I realize, I'm like, dude, I'm actually hella good at this. But the fear stopped me from believing in my own training, in my own practice. And so with the fear, then I couldn't perform. When I got rid of the fear, now it's like the respect was coming around the room. People were like, man, you're like this and that. It's not about that. But the point is we need to then remove those fears, those blockages that we have, because it's the fear that's seeping into your system, that's taking you away from what you want. And what is it that you want? You're like, well, I want to make more money. Okay. What is it that you fear that's getting in the way of you making more money? It's a fear. We all have it. I could even ask that question to me, as I say, like, what's getting in the way of you making more money, bro? What's the fear? What's the fear of? Where are you resisting? Another word for fear is a resistance. Where are you resisting? Well, I mean, it's going to require me to do more work, or see, let me genuinely look at it. Like, what is it? What's the fear that you have right now from, let's say, making more money? Well, then I got to make more clients. Okay, how are you going to get more clients? Well, I can promote more. Okay, you're going to promote more? What are you going to promote about? Your business? Yeah, I'm going to promote about my business. So what's the fear? Where's the resistance? Why are you not doing it? Well, I just don't know what to say. What do you mean? I don't know how to like promote my business. You don't know how to talk about your business? It's not that. Like, see, with a few questions, we'll start to look at our own illogic. We'll start to look at the reasons that we make up. And that's literally what it comes down to, is we got to question our life. Like, why the fuck are we doing the things that we're doing? Everything, every part of it, bro. We got to question every part of it. Like, when I was smoking weed, why am I smoking weed? For what? Oh, because it activates my mind and my thoughts. Why though? Why do I want to activate thoughts in my mind for weed? Well, because then I have deeper thoughts. But why do you want deeper thoughts? So that I could do more. But do you do more by smoking weed, or do you do more because you're doing more? Well, the weed helps me do more. Why? So you can only do more if you're smoking weed? See, it's like we got to break down a lot of these things. The same thing that guys say, like, why do you drink alcohol? Oh, because it loosens me up. So when I'm out at a social venue, I'm like more loose and I could talk to people better. So the only way you can talk to people better is by drinking? Well, it helps. Okay, so let me ask you, if you're in an environment where you couldn't drink and there wasn't alcohol available, then you're not able to talk and communicate? Well, yeah, but just not as comfortably. So then do I got to drink alcohol, or do I got to work on being more comfortable when I talk? Because so much of the things that we do, we have to question. Like, we have these ideas that are like blockages. They're like band-aids on actual problems that we're holding on to. People are genuinely trying to do the best that they can. Like, we're all trying to do the best that we can, but it's our own fucking ego that gets in the way of us actually getting better. We have such a big ego, dog. Everybody. We have such a big ego. I don't want to fight the guy because I don't want to get beat up. I don't want to go make more money because then what if I don't succeed? I don't want to communicate because then what if I get judged? I don't want to tell people that I'm doing this because then I'm going to get criticized. I don't want to take more responsibility because then if I don't perform, then I'm going to look like I'm weak. It's like everywhere we look and turn, we're compromising. So many ways. We're compromising. And again, it's this ego trying to protect its own little identity. Like we're trying to protect ourselves. That's all it's doing. It's trying to protect its identity. I'm sick of trying to protect my identity, bro. Let the world judge. Let the world criticize. But when they judge and they criticize, show them by demonstrating what they're judging and what they're criticizing. See, when a man of, let's say, full faith, a man who lives for a greater God, each and every day he performs his tasks, from the way he eats to the way he sleeps to the way he works out to the way he speaks to the way he treats life. He in his mind has a relation with God. He in his mind has a relation in the faith, and he lives like that. So then when people judge and criticize him, his only relationship is with his God. And we have too many, or let me say this, we've allowed too many people space in our head. Like we are allowing their judgments to take space in our mind. Look, the only person who can actually approve of you, the only person who can actually criticize you, the only person who can actually condemn you is your God. When you live like that, when you live with the idea like says, hey, let's say if you're a Jesus follower, right? I love Jesus. I've been studying that guy a lot lately. And he performs, man, he's just so cool. He's just so cool, bro. Like if you really start to watch, I'm just gonna plug in a show. It's called The Chosen. It's on Amazon Prime, and there's also the Chosen app. You can get the download the app. Watch the show, and then you're gonna get a lot of respect for this guy, because I think that we have misunderstandings. We've learned from Christians how they praise Jesus, and we had a lot of resistance. Like my whole life, I had resistance towards Christians. I grew up in a Catholic faith, um, just because that's what it was told to me. But I wasn't like fully devoted to religion. But as I continued to mature, I realized that there's nothing in this life, in this material life, that is more fulfilling than having a spiritual connection with a greater God. Then there's going to be the argument of people who say, well, there is no God, there's no proof. Well, there's more proof that there was a God and the influence. Just look. If you look up what's the number one book, the number one bestseller of humanity, and it's the Bible. Like, if Jesus wasn't real, if the story of God wasn't real, then let's just say this: someone who wasn't real, and from your perspective, I believe he is, but let's say if he wasn't real, because let's say an atheist says, well, Jesus wasn't real, there's no proof. Okay, well, if he wasn't real, why is something that's not real have more influence? Why is something that isn't real known worldwide? Why is something that's not real has more followers than you, who is real, right? So the person who says there is no God, and they say he's not real because he doesn't exist or it's a made up story, okay, then why does something that's not real have more influence on the world than you, if you're real? Well, because it's just been pushed. No, no, no. You're real though. You're real, right? So why isn't your ideas, and why isn't your philosophy, and why isn't your understandings of life more influential than something that wasn't real? And the person said, well, they won't have an answer. See, each being needs to stand on something, but I don't have the answers in my life because I haven't. I can't take credit for a lot of, I've accomplished a lot. I've had a lot of great experiences. However, I can't take credit. So back to the subject of how to remove our fears. Like, that's such a small thing. Well, how do you remove your fears? Have faith. Have faith. Have faith that it's going to get taken care of. By who? By the Father. I would rather live with the idea that there's a father that takes care of me than the idea that there isn't. The idea that there isn't, then that allows a life of lack of morals. Just take a look at the world, man. Look at how women are behaving. Look at how men are behaving. A world that has lost sight that there is a father, that there is a greater God, you know? And so we live in a culture where people are just misbehaving everywhere. It's foul, bro. It's really, really fucking foul how the world behaves. And it is a world of the devil. You know, people are chasing money, they're chasing material, they're chasing a bunch of the worldly accolades. Like that's what's being pushed. Now, do we need money? Of course. You need money to survive. You need money to make money to live and pay bills and eat and take care of your family, right? We get it. However, when that becomes the pinnacle of your life is to, oh, my goal is to become a billionaire. My question to you is why? Well, because I want to be one of the wealthiest men in the world. Why? Well, because I want to have a bunch of cars and smoke cigars and wear suits. Why? Well, because I want people to like me. Why though? Well, because I want the girl that you see, we got to start looking at our own logic. Like, why do we do the things that we do? Why do you work the job that you have? If you were to choose anything else, would you do something else? Why did you dress the way you dress today? Why do you do the things that you do? Why are you with the person that you're with? Why are you friends with the people you're friends with? Why do you live where you live? See, we got to ask this question because then we got to take an honest assessment. See, anybody should be able to ask you a question and you should be able to have an answer. And you should be able to stand strong in your answer because then fear won't enter your system. That's faith. So if you were to ask me, hey, bro, why'd you move from Los Angeles to San Jose? Because my answer, simply, my teacher's here. My teacher was an opportunity to live with my teacher, but why? Why did you go live with your teacher? Because it makes me stronger. Why do you want to be stronger? Because my whole life, all I've wished for was to be stronger to handle all the shit of my life. Why? I don't know why. Because my father wasn't, my father was strong, but he failed me. Why? Because then his father failed him. Why? And then it's just a generation of continuous going back and forth. So at some point, the question comes up. So what do you do? Well, as I mentioned in the last talk, you got to forgive your mother and forgive your father and say, hey, I forgive you both. One, for not being able to handle your lives. Mom, for not being able to handle your emotions. You tried to make me into an emotional little girl, Mom. Dad, I appreciate you, Dad. You were strong, but I had a lot of anger and resentment inside of me because you weren't, when I needed you most, you weren't there to protect me. But I forgive you both because I know that you did your best. And I know that you also too are going through the things that your mom and your dad did to you. So that cycle ends here. So now I can move strong in my life once I forgive them and let go of that anger and resentment that my mom was this and my dad was this and they weren't there for me, and the same storyline that people go through. So all right, guys, I got some things to handle, so we'll wrap it up here and we'll talk soon. All right, everybody, be the best.